This is the brief on Newsfirst Digital.
A very good evening and welcome. This is the brief at 7 on Newsfirst Digital, Sri Lanka's first ever online news bulletin. I'm Ramesh, Irugalbandara.
And I'm Serala, Fonseka. We'll start off with a look at your top story. A shootout between the police STF and several gang members in the Kamburupitiya area in Mathura resulted in the death of one person.
The shootout took place in the Vilpite area in Kamburupitiya at around 7:45 p.m. yesterday. The deceased has been identified as a member of the underworld operating in the southern province. The shootout occurred last night when the STF attempted to stop a three-wheeler based on a tip-off that an armed gang was roaming the area in Kamburupitiya. The three-wheeler in question had sped away when the STF attempted to stop it. The STF officers had then given chase. The suspects in the three-wheeler had headed into a forest area and opened fire at the STF officers. The STF officers retaliated and managed to injure a suspect who was in possession of a T-56 firearm. The suspect passed away after being admitted to the Kamburupitiya hospital. The police later identified the victim as Manal Rohana, alias Tilak, a henchman of underworld kingpin Makandure Madush. Operations have been launched by the Kamburupitiya police and the STF to arrest two suspects who fled the area during the shooting. The operations are centering around the Vilpite Reserve, where the suspects are believed to be in hiding.
Following the cabinet meeting held today, Deputy Minister of Law and Order Nalin Bandara stated that the government is taking steps to crack down on activities of the underworld. He also said that steps will be taken to bring in new legislation if required in order to crack down on the underworld. The underworld is being exterminated. Back then, there were murders and bank robberies, but the suspects weren't arrested. Today, in most cases, we have been able to arrest the suspects within a short period. We might need to bring in new laws and regulations. We will take steps to get rid of the underworld for the sake of the people. We laugh when we hear these statements. Mahinda Rajapaksa has accepted that Udayanga Veeratunga is one of his cronies. We saw pictures of Mahinda Rajapaksa and Udayanga together during his tour of Japan. Most of the activities to bring back Udayanga have already been done. He is in custody in Abu Dhabi for using a false passport. We have had some problems bringing him back due to issues relating to the extradition laws. The government has taken steps and he will be brought back to the country soon. In such a backdrop, the people will understand what he means by his statement.
The Dr. Saman Kalagama Memorial Lecture organized by the Institute of Policy Studies was held in Colombo yesterday. The lecture was delivered by Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, the Governor of the Central Bank. During the lecture, the Governor spoke about Sri Lanka and the IMF.
In the past, we got foreign aid. 60% of it came from IDA and from the Asian Development Fund on extremely concessional terms. We're talking about 10-year grace periods, 30-40-year maturity, and less than 1% administration charge. Now when we go to the market, we're borrowing at 6% or more. And it's extremely important that we internalize the change in circumstances that the country is confronted with. I think because we have not perhaps taken this paradigm shift on board sufficiently, it can be argued that we have given away a fair chunk of our national economic sovereignty. In Asia, Sri Lanka and Mongolia are the only two countries to have an IMF program. To have an IMF program in Asia at this time actually takes some doing. It demonstrates the extent of our mismanagement. The IMF doesn't come and impose its programs on us. They don't come and take away national economic sovereignty. We go to the IMF when we mess things up. So this is something that we need to be very clear about. And if we don't have an IMF program, it will be very difficult for us to access the external financing that we need. And if we are not able to do that, we would have to have import compression, which will be extremely painful.
A protest march was staged by the Students' Union of the Open University of Sri Lanka.
The protesters began their march from the Open University premises in Navala and proceeded towards the University Grants Commission. The student union claims that the government is once again attempting to increase prices charged by the students for courses at the Open University. They also state that student activists who led the charge against the administration's previous attempts to increase prices have been silenced through suspensions. According to the protesters, the government is also taking steps to do away with the distance learning facilities provided by the Open University, while at the same time lowering the quality of education provided through the university. What will the next election be? Will it be the scheduled provincial council election? Will it be a presidential election or a general election? Well, it seems like the Elections Commission is gearing up for the scheduled provincial council election because today a meeting was held between the chairman of the Elections Commission, Mahinda Deshapriya, and political party representatives. During this meeting, the chairman of the Elections Commission had instructed the party officials on what they need to do in order to be prepared for a provincial council election at the end of the year.
As the
SLFP, we propose that instead of delaying the election, we should hold the election as soon as possible. This request was approved by the Elections Commissioner.
The
system which will be used is not an issue. The Parliament has approved a certain electoral system. If there are any shortcomings, the Parliament could make amendments very easily. What is important is for the election to be held.
මේක පවත්වන එක තමයි වැදගත් වන්නේ.
මේ මැතිවරණය අනවශ්‍ය ලෙස ප්‍රමාදයක් සිද්ධ වෙනවා දිගින්.
The election is being delayed in an unnecessary manner. Almost all political parties were of the opinion that we should write to the relevant authorities to hold the election.
සභාපතිවරයාගේ ප්‍රධානත්වයෙන් මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ලියලා යවන්න.
In news overseas, we first turn attention to Greece, where dozens of Greeks clashed with police yesterday during a presentation by the ruling party in order to explain the virtues and values of a deal to change the name of Macedonia.
Greece and Macedonia signed a pact this month to rename the former Yugoslav state North Macedonia to end decades of dispute between them. But the move has fueled protests on both sides of the border, with recent polls showing that up to 70% of Greeks object to the name compromise. On Monday, dozens of protesters tried to force their way into a heavily guarded exhibition hall in Thessaloniki, where Syriza members were delivering a presentation called The Macedonia Issue, Benefits of the Agreement and Prospects for the Balkans. Greeks have contested Macedonia's name since it broke away from the former Yugoslavia in 1991, saying it implied territorial claims over the Greek province of Macedonia and theft of ancient Greek culture and civilization.
President Hassan Rouhani promised Iranians the government would be able to handle the economic pressure of new US sanctions a day after traders massed outside parliament protesting against a sharp fall in the value of the national currency.
Washington is to start reimposing economic penalties on Tehran in the coming months after US President Donald Trump quit an agreement between major world powers and Iran in which sanctions were lifted in return for curbs on its nuclear program. This may cut Iran's hard currency earnings from oil exports, and the prospect is triggering a panic flight of Iranian savings from the rial into dollars. Hassan Rouhani, in a speech broadcast live on state TV, said Iran would not be broken by US sanctions, that America had trampled over UN Security Council resolution and had always tried to force an end to Islamic rule in Iran. Rouhani said the fresh US sanctions were part of a psychological, economic and political war, adding that Washington would pay a high price for its actions. And that's a wrap of the brief at 7. Always send in your thoughts and comments on the contents that we add tonight through the comment section below. For Newsfirst Digital, I'm Ramesh Irugalbandara.
And I'm Serala Fonseka. Good night.